I'm Barry Tramel, and I'm picking Texas Saturday in Lincoln.
I am too, from the Opepco Studios in Oklahoma City. You're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenni Carlson. News OK's Press Row is brought to you by Eskridge Lexus. Stop in and see them today. Barry, we both pick Texas to win this game on our staff picks. I think we're in the minority, but you and I both really like the Longhorns in this game.
Well, I just refuse to believe that Texas is as bad as we saw against UCLA, and then they played pretty well against Oklahoma. This game has lost some luster. A lot of people were hoping for 5-0 Texas versus 5-0 Nebraska, but the bad blood still exists on Nebraska side. It's still a holy war to the Cornhuskers and their fans. But I think Texas has the kind of defense that can shut down Nebraska. I refuse to believe that those massive holes we saw Nebraska quarterback Taylor Martinez run through against Kansas State, they're not going to be there against Texas. When he gets into the secondary, he's not going to run away from the Texas safeties the way he ran away from Kansas State safeties. I think it's going to be a different game for the Huskers. I think Texas pulls it out.
Yeah, and you picked the nice in-your-eye score of 13-12, mirroring last year's game between these two. I actually picked a bigger score than that, a bigger spread for Texas. I have them winning 21-13. I just think this Texas defense, while they repeatedly shot themselves in the foot against Oklahoma, I have to think after an off week, after sort of having the humbling experience of 2 consecutive losses, that this Texas defense is going to go to Lincoln and want to show that it's as good as they are. They're a really good defense, really solid defense. And I think if they play like they're capable of, I really don't see how Nebraska's offense is going to be able to be nearly as effective as they've been in other games. And frankly, there's been some games this year where they haven't been very effective. So I'm going with Texas to win in Lincoln. That's going to be a great game. Another great game, Barry, though. Arkansas at Auburn, an SEC matchup. Again, every week, great SEC matchups. This is another one on Saturday.
Well, the SEC West has become the balance of power in the conference, and it's a great race this year. South Carolina upsetting Alabama turns it into a free-for-all. Alabama still has to go to LSU. LSU is unbeaten. Today we've got Saturday, Arkansas and Auburn. At Auburn, the Tigers are unbeaten. The Razorbacks have lost only to Alabama. It's going to be a great game and a little bit of intrigue. Former Arkansas offensive coordinator Gus Malzahn now runs the Auburn offense. So I think this is going to be a shootout. Anybody could win it. Arkansas has been a pretty good road team so far. Played well last week at Arlington at a neutral site. Played well, won at Georgia. I think Arkansas can win. I think Auburn will win in a tight one.
Yeah, I think Auburn wins this game too. I like the fact that they've got Cam Newton, who's really emerging as one of the top players in the country. This is a game that honestly you could see not only Cam Newton but Arkansas quarterback Ryan Mallett both make it to the Heisman finalists, be finalists in New York City here in a couple of months. I think both of these guys are really talented. I think it's going to be a great showcase for these two in a league where defense so often rules. I could see this game being definitely in the 20s, maybe even into the 30s. But I like Auburn in this one on Saturday. Another big matchup. Let's go to the Big Ten for this one, Barry. Ohio State at Wisconsin. I think that there were some people sort of like Texas, Nebraska would have liked to see undefeateds. Wisconsin's got a loss at this point, but this should be a pretty good matchup, obviously, in Madison.
Well, it should be. In 2002, Ohio State's on its way to the national championship, survives a tight one in Madison. The next year, in October of 03, Ohio State has to go back to Madison. Don't ask me about Big Ten scheduling, but they go back to Wisconsin with a 19-game winning streak, and the Badgers knocked them off. Ohio State's only been back to Wisconsin once since then. In 08, survived another tight one. This is going to be a tight game. I'm picking Wisconsin in the upset. I've not been impressed with the way Ohio State has played. I think Wisconsin gets up for big games. I think the Badgers can pull the upset.
I'm going to still stick with Ohio State. I'm going to say they're going to go and win this game. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised to see the road jump up and get Ohio State, which, the way this season's gone, we saw a loss last week for Alabama. Now we've got a new number 1 in Ohio State. Could they not even last a week in that spot without suffering a loss? Entirely possible. I'm going to stick with Ohio State. I think this is a team that showed some resilience this year. They're going to need it, though, because this is going to be a tough road test for them. Barry, finally, let's go back to the Big 12 for our final game. Missouri at Texas A&M. Missouri, one of the remaining 13 undefeated teams in the country. A&M sort of showing rockiness here these last couple weeks, but obviously College Station, a tough place to play. This should be quite a matchup on Saturday as well.
It's a fascinating game. Quick quiz. Who leads the nation in total defense? The answer? Missouri. Now, part of that is Missouri's played a very weak schedule, but still, the Tigers playing tough defense, and big game for both teams for this reason. If Missouri wins, they set up a huge showdown in Columbia. What would be a battle of unbeatens with Oklahoma. Oklahoma and Missouri both would be in the top 15. A huge, huge game, but think about the ramifications for A&M. Supposed to be a good year for A&M. Got Jared Johnson. Got some defense finally with Tim DeRuyter at defensive coordinator. If A&M loses this game, the Aggies fall to 3-3. Still have to host OU in Nebraska. Still have to go to Texas and Baylor. This could be a season killer for the Aggies. Huge game in College Station. I'm picking Missouri to win on the road.
You and I have both picked Missouri, and we're actually definitely in the minority among our staff picks on that one. Several of our colleagues picking Texas A&M to hold home turf. But I have huge questions about Gerard Johnson. He will 1 minute look like a great quarterback. The next minute, he's throwing it at the feet of a receiver who's only a few yards away. He's just been so hot and cold. I think Texas A&M's defense continues to get better, but I'm just not sold on Johnson as a playmaker that you can depend on. I really have questions about him. I think Missouri goes and wins, but then again, Barry, maybe it's wishful thinking because we could have next weekend, if the undefeateds hold, if Oklahoma State, Nebraska, who you and I think is going to lose, but if they win and Missouri wins, both of our teams are playing undefeated matchups next week. I don't think Nebraska wins. Maybe I'm just holding out hope that Missouri wins, keeps one of those undefeated matchups alive. Hey, stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoma. And remember, News OK's Press Row is sponsored by Eskridge Lexus. Stop in and see them today.